Africa. Let's consider the specific steps that we'll be taking to protect them from unfair treatment, support them in learning about online trading, and also provide support for groups of women and youth-owned businesses. Welcome to episode 119 of the Trading Without Borders podcast with Omobi, your host. In today's episode, we will continue with our discussions on the AfCFTA Women and Youth in Trade Protocol. We will focus on the provisions on protection against harassment and related practices, provisions on digital trade, and finally the provisions on women and youth-owned or led micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. On the protection against harassment and related practices, state parties are to establish and strengthen their national laws and regulations and grievance redress mechanisms related to harassment and related practices that affect women and youth in trade. They are to implement and monitor mechanisms that will prevent, discourage, and address and eliminate all forms of harassment and related practices that compromise the security and safety of women and youth in trade. So state parties are expected to put measures in place that will ensure the security and safety of women and youth in trade. Moving on to the digital trade provisions, state parties are to ensure that in accordance with the provisions on protocol on digital trade, that there are regulatory frameworks that will support women and youth in trade to facilitate their access to digital trade platforms, tools, and solutions to trade. The state parties are to identify and eliminate barriers that affect the entry and participation of women and youth in trade in digital trade, and to also provide information on the procedures and the tools that are deployed in the field of digital trade, are the tools used in digital trade. The state parties are also to provide capacity building programs to equip women and youth in trade with the necessary knowledge and information that they need to participate in digital trade. They are to also encourage the participation of women and youth in trade in digital platforms to enable them to engage with international suppliers, buyers, and other potential business partners. And state parties are also to promote safe and inclusive digital trade policies that consider the specific needs and challenges that are faced by women and youth in trade. And finally, under the provisions of women and youth-owned or led MSMEs, state parties are to take appropriate measures that will facilitate and support business associations and business clusters of women and youth in trade, or women and youth-owned or led MSMEs, to facilitate their participation in trade under the framework of the AfCFTA. They are also to facilitate the integration of women and youth-owned or led MSMEs into innovation ecosystems, including incubators and technology hubs. Okay, so this is where we wrap up for today. So my advice for women and youth in trade: please join associations, join SMEs, join clusters of women and youth-owned or led SMEs, join the clusters, join the associations. Oh yes, at the beginning I had mentioned that this is episode 119, this is the 120th episode of the Trading Without Borders podcast. And as usual, the podcast is for educational purposes only. If you need expert advice, you need advice about entry into any African market or expanding your business operations across Africa, kindly reach out to me on LinkedIn. I am Omobola Adekola. And until next week, I say to you, bye-bye.